When I was searching the internet for pithy quotes about summer camp that I might be able to use for the front of this bulletin, I kept coming across this one. Campers, nature's way of feeding mosquitoes. For those of you who have ever camped, or ever gone to summer camp, or even been outside in the last few weeks, you will understand the truth in this statement. Besides this simple, obvious fact, I hope today to tell some stories about my camp experiences that will stir memories in you about yours, and perhaps lead you into your future where you might find you have a few more experiences living outside of your comfort zone. I'm sure everyone has camping horror stories. So if it's so bad, why do we do it? Why do we send our kids off to camp year after year when every letter home tells us how miserable they are? Most of these letters they are required to write during that afternoon time known as FOB, flat on bunk. So, is it just horrors fantasized out of boredom, or are they really suffering? I recall my youngest daughter, Melanie, telling me that she planned to go to camp at Howell Conference and Nature Center during the summer after her second grade year. That's the youngest they allow overnight campers, and of course, being my baby, I thought she was too young to go. But she insisted. And about halfway through the week, she ended up twisting her arm during an activity. She didn't want us to be informed, so she wore a sling for the rest of the week, and even managed to help build a shelter out of fallen branches in which her group spent their last night at camp. Talk about living outside your comfort zone. She did exactly what Eleanor Roosevelt said we should all do: to taste experience to the utmost, to reach out eagerly and without fear for newer and richer experiences. My middle daughter, Carrie, had a more intimate experience with mosquitoes. It was the summer of 2005, I think, and Miss Dana, our CE director at the time, had created a Detroit City mission camp for the youth of Fort Street. They entertained the children at a Habitat for Humanity house building blitz near the church, and most nights were spent in the Donlin Center. One memorable night, however, was spent out at Howell at their global village. There, the kids were divided up into groups to experience the diet and the sleeping conditions of people in various parts of the world. Carrie got to live in the slums. Besides having to beg other groups for dinner, at bedtime she had to drag her sleeping bag into what was essentially an oversized cardboard box left on its side. The mosquitoes were numerous and as hungry as Carrie. As she tells it, Carrie spent the night dragging her sleeping bag from abode to abode, begging to be let in. So, if kids are suffering in the camp experience, is that good for them? Does it build character? Or are they just feeding mosquitoes? I do know this. Carrie uses this story every so often to point out that a situation is not quite so dire and thus potentially survivable, even though the other person may not believe it at the time. And so, I suppose that might be what the psalmist was leading us to understand in Psalm 72. Our God delivers the needy when they call, the poor and those who have no helper. He has pity on the weak and the needy, and saves the lives of the needy. From oppression and violence, he redeems their life, and precious is their blood in his sight. So precious, perhaps, that God uses it to feed another of his creatures, the mosquitoes? Well, think about that one and let me know.